Well, hey, welcome to Discovery. We're so glad that you decided to jump in here and hang out with us early. Later today, we're talking about faith and trust. And so I just wanted to ask you guys, what celebrity do you think is the most trustworthy? Like if they told you they were abducted by aliens, you'd believe them. A study said that Tom Hanks is typically the person people would answer. And so he's off the board. We know we would trust everything he says. Put it in the chat. What celebrity is the most trustworthy? Well, hey, thanks so much again for jumping in here. Make sure to say hey to our chat hosts. Later today, we're going to talk about truth and faith and how we trust God. And as a kid, we all told little white lies. So it's confession time. Tell us in the chat, what's one of the weirdest lies you ever told? A little white lie, maybe it got you in trouble, whatever. Tell us in one sentence in the chat. Well, later today, we're talking about faith and trust, and we've all been there. Team building exercises. What's the cheesiest, weirdest, craziest trust building exercise you've ever done? Trust falls, camping trips, back rub, Congo lines. What was it? Put it in the chat. Well, thanks again for joining us. We're about to get started, so make sure to say hey to our friends in the chat. They're awesome people, and if you're new around here, we'd love to get to know you. We'll even send you a free gift. Just text CONNECT to 724-780-0061 and toss us on the biggest screen in your house. Turn up the volume because we're about to have some awesome tunes that will reconnect you to God.
Hey there, Discovery. Would you stand with us wherever you are to sing and worship together about the power and the might of our God? Sing, who breaks? Who breaks the power of sin and darkness? Whose love is mighty and so much stronger? The King of glory, the King above all kings. Oh, today we're singing a new song, and I'm going to tell you something that maybe you are not used to hearing in church. That today we're not going to sing about a victory right now, but we're going to sing about a hallelujah that is going to come. And maybe this season right now is not about finding victory, it's not finding about the answer, but maybe it's about going through the storm. It's going through the valley of this life, of this season. So that's what this new song is. It's called The Way. And it declares that no matter what, He is leading us the way through everything that we are encountering in this season. And I picture just a valley, that we are walking through that valley together, and the Father is right beside us. He is weathering the storm with us. So we invite you to sing this out with confidence. The words will be on the screen. Let's declare this. Every battle, every heartbreak, every circumstance, I believe that you are my fortress, you are my portion, you are my hiding place. Oh, I believe you are the way, the truth, the life. I believe you are the way,
Oh, sorry. You caught me working on my long game. What, you think Tiger ever took a break because there was a thunderstorm? You might be wondering why I'm wearing these pants. One, because they're awesome. Two, because this is my expert championship level golf uniform. Three, because on Father's Day, June 21st, we're going to be hosting as many people as possible out here on our golf course for the first ever Discovery Masters. That's right, June 21st from 3 to 7. We'd love for you to come. Bring your dad, bring your son, bring your neighbor, bring your neighbor's dad, bring your father, mother, sister, brother's dad. I don't know. Bring somebody here to hang out. It's BYO, whatever you want to bring. We're going to have a great time hanging out. And of course, for the winners, on whichever course they want to put their points towards, we will be giving a championship level, quality, gaudy jacket of some sort, as well as some prizes. So love to see you Father's Day, June 21st. Be out here and be a champion just like me. Over to my correspondent in the booth. Thanks, Todd. Man, looks rough out there. We're so glad that you're here streaming our Discovery services. I don't know about you, but I've loved figuring out this new experience. But what we've been doing has extended far beyond just digitizing our normal services. Everything's adapting. I don't have kids yet, but every week I love following along with our kids services. Travis and this kids team do a phenomenal job making a fun, engaging experience. Not only will your kids love it, but so will you. But here's the secret. You can't just sit them in front of it and walk away. You have to watch it with them. There are games and questions to talk about what's going on. And as Matt said before, and maybe you can say it with me, if you're a parent, you're a pastor. We've always wanted to give you everything you need to help teach and shape your kids' spiritual growth. And in this season, you have a really unique opportunity. By the way, you might get a lot out of it too. Well, speaking of our kids adapting to this current circumstance, our students are doing something too. We have some awesome stuff coming up for kids grades 6 through 12. We typically whisk them away to an awesome conference called CIY every summer, but given the circumstances, CIY is actually coming to us. We'll be hosting a satellite version of the conference literally in our own building. And if there were any reasons your student couldn't go before the quarantine, they probably don't exist anymore. It's coming up in the next couple of weeks, so check out discoverypgh.com/CIY. There's a link in the chat. Make sure your student is a part of it. They're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be an incredible experience. I know experiences like that changed my life. It'll change their life too. This Friday, our county turned green, which means things are slowly opening up. People are putting their toes into the swimming pool to test the waters. And we just want to let you know, as much as we want to get everyone together, we want to see you, we want to hug you, there's some people who aren't ready. And the risk of infection from the strange new virus is still really, really big and a huge danger to many. We want to take our time. You'll hear from other places, including churches, that are starting to do this quickly, and that's great for them. We hope they do it well. But we're going to take our time. We want to be the first in a lot of things, but this is probably not one of them. However, we'd encourage you to start reaching out to your friends. Don't give them a guilt trip if they're not ready, but if you are, start re-engaging. We're going to be trying some new things this summer, and reconnecting with friends and neighbors is a good start. We're in contact with a lot of great leaders that are helping us make these decisions, and we'll let you know when it seems like the best timing for our specific community and church to try to regather. By the way, that means we want to get in touch and get to know you digitally. We want to make this the most engaging experience as possible. If you've been hanging out with us recently, maybe this is your first time checking us out, we want to meet you. We're passionate about making this connection personal. So all you have to do is text, and we'll be in touch. We'll send you a free gift. Just send the word CONNECT to 724-780-0061, and we'll look forward to getting connected to you and getting to know you more. We're starting a new series this morning we're really, really excited about, but I'll let Matt set it up.
starting a brand new series called How to Live by Faith in a Frustrating World. And throughout, we're going to let this tiny 3-chapter book buried in the back of the Old Testament called Habakkuk drive us. And I'd encourage you to grab a translation of the Bible, a good one. I recommend either the New International Version or the New Living Translation. Another great option is you can download the Bible app on your smartphone. It's free. And then you'll have to select off the default setting, which is the King James Version. You're going to want to get that out of there. And you're going to choose the NIV or the NLT translation. You'll be glad that you did. And also in the Bible app, there are several great reading plans on the book of Habakkuk. And we are recommending one in particular called Hope in the Dark. It's a 12-day reading plan, and we would love for you to start that today. Habakkuk is the word from God that we need for the year 2020. Because I think it's safe to say that all of our levels of frustration has escalated just a bit over the past few months. I heard recently that during this pandemic, that all of us have been operating with 30% more stress. And I'm not even sure how they measured that to find out if it's true or not, but it sure feels true. Then you add to that all that's going on in our nation right now with the struggle for racial equality and social justice. It's easy to become overwhelmed with frustration. And for people who look like me, who've been feeling this way for about a week, this is just a small glimpse into how many of our black brothers and sisters have been feeling all their lives. As a matter of fact, if you're watching live right now, would you do this for me on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being, hey, I am super chill right now, all's good. And 10 being, put in the chat right now your level of frustration in life, 1 to 10. Be honest, we value gritty authenticity here at Discovery. Well, my name is Matt. I'm the lead pastor at Discovery. We're so glad that you're here. We are physically in the great city of Pittsburgh, but we also know more and more people are coming from places beyond the Steel City through our online church, and I just want to say welcome. So glad that you're here. If you're new here at Discovery, it would mean a lot if you would just take a few seconds and text the word CONNECT to the number that you see there on the screen. We would love to send you a gift, and I would love the opportunity to get to meet you. Well, whether you're participating in this live right now or experiencing this on your own time later in the week or gathering at one of our neighborhood house parties, I am super glad that you're here. I believe God is going to use this series to reveal himself to you in a deeper and more real way. Would you pray with me right now? God, you are seated on the throne of heaven and the universe. Nothing escapes you. Nothing surprises you. You see all things and you know all things. We are your creation and we do not share your infinite vantage point. You know, we can't see beyond the moment that we are currently in, and at times that can be terrifying. So God, we invite you into this moment. We need to hear from you. We know your word is alive and it's active. It searches our thoughts in the deepest parts of our hearts. We need to hear from you. So for my friends right now, God, who are experiencing this right now, I pray you will meet with them here and now, that they will feel your presence and that they will know that you alone are worthy of their trust, their faith, and their praise. You, God, are King of kings. You are leader of leaders, and you are our rescuer. Amen. You know, I love a story that starts out hot right out of the gate. I love when I sit down to watch a movie or pick up a good book where I am instantly thrown right into the action. Recently, there was a night when the boys were in bed and Janie was in bed and I was wide awake. And so I wanted to watch a movie. So I fired up Netflix and I saw this movie called Extraction and I pressed play. And instantly I am transported to a bridge in the city of Dhaka in Bangladesh. And I see Chris Hemsworth, who plays Thor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and who makes me feel less of a man every time I see him on screen. And he is in this fierce gun battle, and I am instantly committed for the next 2 hours. I love to be dropped right into the action. And some books of the Bible, like the letters of Paul, usually start off like, hey, church family, thanks for coming. I thank God for each and every one of you. But could everybody kind of take their seats? There's refreshments in the back. But that is not Habakkuk. This guy comes in hot. Habakkuk, he is super frustrated. He explodes right out of the gate. I mean, just in the first 4 verses of Habakkuk, here are just some of the words. He says, violence, injustice, evil, destruction. Look at the violence before me. There is strife and there's conflict abounds. The law is paralyzed. Justice never prevails. Justice is perverted. Sound familiar? Habakkuk in the chat would have put a 13 followed by a string of exclamation points. He doesn't even have time for an introduction. He's Thor on the bridge, engaged in a fierce battle with God. And in his frustration, he just fires off these 2 questions that I bet almost all of us have asked before. The first question he asks is, how much longer will this last? God, I keep asking you for help. Are you not hearing me? When are you finally going to act, God? And the second question he asks is why? God, why do you make me look at injustice? When are you going to make things right? And if you've not asked these questions, take a break, press pause, go check out social media for a few moments, and then come back and you'll get there real quick. Now, over the month of June, we are going to study the book of Habakkuk, and we're going to go verse by verse. So next week, we're going to start at chapter 1, and I would encourage you to be reading and studying chapter 1 even this week. Start that Hope in the Dark reading plan that we talked about earlier on the Bible app. It will not take you long, just a few minutes a day. But today, what I want to do, I want to look at who Habakkuk was, what was going on in his culture that made him so frustrated, and I want to look at the overarching theme of this timeless and relevant book. So, Habakkuk is a guy that we actually don't know that much about. We know that his name means one who embraces or one who wrestles. And we're going to see that he is wrestling with a lot of junk that's going on around him. But what we do know is that he was a prophet. That was his occupation. For the past few weeks, I've been going through a personal study on the prophets of the Bible, people like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Daniel, and Nahum, Habakkuk, and many, many others. And I'm just going to call it like I see it. Prophets are weird. They're just weird. Hosea, a guy in the Bible, a prophet in the Bible, he marries a prostitute. Jonah, he was a racist. Isaiah had to walk around naked for 3 whole years. Elisha called upon a wild bear to maul a group of teenagers because they were making fun of his male pattern baldness. And John the Baptist ate a steady diet of honey-infused insects. But probably my winner of most bizarre prophet is when God told Jeremiah to go buy a new pair of underwear and then instructs him never to wash them. And after wearing them for a long time, God then tells him to take them off and hide them. And then many days later, God tells Jeremiah to retrieve said dirty underwear. And in their disgusting, vile state, God says, your underwear is nasty. It is ruined. It is useless, just like my people. And so they will be treated, they will be judged in the same way. Prophets are weird. The prophets were extremely eccentric. Nobody liked them. They weren't invited to parties. Kids walked by their houses scared of them. They had a short shelf life because most of the time people ended up killing them. If you were a prophet back in Bible days, you didn't worry about your 401k because you weren't going to live that long to draw those checks. And throughout the Old Testament, we follow the history of the people of Israel. This was a people that God hand-selected to rescue the world through. God blessed them so that they would in turn be a blessing to the rest of the world. But then in the New Testament shows that because of Jesus, now that people is the church. Is now followers of Jesus, citizens of the kingdom of heaven, who God blesses. Not so that we can sit around being blessed, but so that we can in turn be a blessing to the world. That we will bring the kingdom of heaven here and point others to Jesus. But back in the Old Testament, God created this triad of job positions to lead the people of Israel. You had the prophet, you had the priest, and you had the king. And the prophet was the big picture person. They received the vision or the message from God, and then they were to deliver that message to the people. And then you had the priest. The priest was the person who had the boots on the ground, who loved on and cared for the people. They were the ones who served in the tabernacle. They're the ones who served in the temple. And then you had the king. The king was the one who was supposed to take the rule of God and bring it to the people in a tangible and systematic way. And when the three of those God-ordained positions were working together with the same goal in mind, and they kept their collective eyes on following God, everything went well for the nation of Israel. The blessing continued. But as you read through the Old Testament, as you track through this, what you quickly find is that rarely happened. That rarely happened. Because usually there was a corrupt leader, a king who did evil in the eyes of God, who was sitting on the throne. And so he would send one of his prophets to call the king out on his corruption. And usually that didn't end well for the king. That didn't end well for the prophet. As a matter of fact, after the first three kings of Israel, you had Saul, you had David, you had Solomon, the nation of Israel fell into a time of civil unrest, and actually the nation split into two nations. You had the northern kingdom, Israel, who kept the name Israel, and then you had the southern kingdom, who kept the capital city of Jerusalem. They kept the temple, and they went by the name of Judah. So not only did you have one king in one nation, but now you had two kings in two different nations who were not following God. And Habakkuk, he lived in the southern kingdom in Judah, and he is super frustrated because his nation is broken beyond repair. And the year that this whole thing takes place is around 600 BC, and there has been a run of just terrible leadership, bad king after bad king after bad king, them leading the people of God away from God. And there was violence, and there was corruption, there was all sorts of perverted justice, all sorts of ungodliness, and you could say really it looked a lot like the world that we live in today in 2020. And so we're going to start in Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 through 4, because that's where we're going to find that overarching theme. And in verse 2, God is about to respond to Habakkuk's cries of just super frustration. And here's what it says. It says, "Then the Lord said to me, write my answer plainly on tablets so that a runner can carry the correct message to others. This vision is for a future time. It describes the end, and it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait patiently, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. And he says, Habakkuk, look at the proud. They trust in themselves, and their lives are crooked, but the righteous will live by the faithfulness to God. First, God tells Habakkuk, I know you're frustrated with what you see that's going on around you. I know that you're frustrated because it seems to you that I'm not acting fast enough according to your schedule, but write down my vision. And here's what a vision is. A vision is seeing something that could if God showed up. The kingdom of heaven is what the vision is all about. We just finished a series here at Discovery called Tomorrowland, where we dreamed about what heaven will be like. But heaven isn't just some place out there that we will go as followers of Jesus when we die. No. God is actively bringing heaven to earth through us, through his church, through his people. Just as Jesus prayed while he was down here on earth, he said, God, may your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Or may up there come down here. Friends, I want us to huddle up on this truth. Bring it in. In addition to the culture that we do see, you need to understand that there is a kingdom that we only see when we open God's word. At the end of chapter 2, Habakkuk writes, God sits in his holy temple, that Jesus is on the throne, that he is the king of the kingdom. Right now, the angels are worshiping him, and followers of Jesus who have preceded us in death are with him in his presence. That kingdom is as real as the place where you are sitting right now. And that kingdom has a culture. In the kingdom where Jesus rules, there is no sin, there is no lying, there is no racism, there is no looting, there is no injustice, no sickness, and no death. Right now, in the presence of Jesus, no one is frustrated because everything is as God intends it to be. The problem is, we aren't there. If you have any appetite or any yearning for heaven, you will find yourself invariably frustrated in our current culture. Listen, you might not be a follower of Jesus right now. You may be investigating who God is and asking questions like, is the Bible trustworthy? Is it true? And if that's you, I am so glad that you're here. But even you, if you have ever been frustrated, what that feeling is you instinctively longing for the kingdom of heaven because you were created by God to be with him. So what we need a vision. What is the kingdom of heaven like? If Jesus is our king and his kingdom is our home, our frustration will continue until we are in his kingdom. But in the meantime, we are to be living as citizens of that kingdom, as ambassadors of that kingdom, and bringing that culture into this culture. A kingdom that isn't frustrating, but a kingdom that is filled with the goodness and glory and presence of God. So Habakkuk, he is frustrated by the culture that he's currently in, and God first gives him a vision for what could be, and then gives him what we need to hear as we continue to live in this frustrating world. He says in verse 4, and here's that overarching theme of this entire book: the righteous will live by their faithfulness to God. God says, Habakkuk, I know you're frustrated. I know that the things you see and are currently experiencing are not the way they were meant to be, but have faith. Faith is for when you are frustrated. It doesn't require a lot of faith when your 401k is climbing, or when your kids are obeying and following Jesus, or when you're crushing it at your job, or when your marriage is healthy, or when you're wearing jeans that you haven't fit into since high school. Faith is especially for when you are frustrated. For followers of Jesus, faith is that bridge between our current frustrating culture and the culture of the kingdom of heaven that we will experience for eternity. Faith is what we read in the Word until we see it in the world. Faith is trusting what we read in the Word until we see it in the world. God promises us His kingdom is coming. We don't see it yet, but we trust Him that He will keep His promise. And even when everyone else says, forget God, He's not coming through. He's not coming through for you. The righteous will live by faith, not by what we see, but by faith. In fact, if you ever want to be built up in your faith, I would encourage you to jump back to the back of the Bible in Hebrews chapter 11. It's known as the faith chapter. And it goes through this long list of people who lived by faith. And right before Hebrews 11, the author of Hebrews actually quotes God's response to Habakkuk in chapter 10, verse 38. He says, the righteous will live by faith, and then bursts into chapter 11. And I'll just hit a few of the high notes for you in my own words. It says things like, by faith, we believe that the world was formed at God's command. Now, we weren't there. We didn't see it, but we believe this by faith. He says, by faith, Noah built an ark to save his family and to rescue and God's plan. By faith, Abraham and Sarah were past the age of having kids naturally, but God brought them a son. He was brought to them by faith. It says, by faith, the people of God, they walked through the Red Sea and it parted on both sides and they came through it. It's not only safe, they didn't even get wet. And the Egyptians who followed after them, they were drowned in the Red Sea. And all this happened by faith. By faith, the people of God marched around the walls of Jericho, and the walls came crashing down. The righteous will live by faith. That is the overarching theme of where we're going to be in this book of Habakkuk. So when God promises you, listen, when God promises you a child and you can't conceive, you believe by faith that God will bring it about. And maybe He'll give you a child by birth. Maybe He will give you one by adoption or by fostering, something you didn't even have on your radar. But you continue to believe by faith. Whatever you're giving back to God financially, and you feel like maybe you don't have enough resources, enough money left for the rest of the month, but you are being obedient to God's word, and by faith, you believe that God will be your provider. Whenever your marriage is falling apart and everyone else around you says, you know what, you should do what everybody else does, just go ahead and get a divorce. And you go, no, I remember the vows that we made between each other and to God. By faith, I believe that all things are possible with God. And when the culture that you are living in is like a dumpster fire and it feels extremely frustrating and you are worried about the future, by faith, you remain obedient to the ways of Jesus and loving your neighbor as yourself, and God will bring heaven to earth through you. You live by faith. You don't walk by what you see like everybody else, but instead you live by faith. Now, what happens in those moments when you're living by faith and in your lifetime, you still don't see what you believe God has promised? Well, there's three words that we need to remember on your journey towards intimacy and ultimate trust and faith in God. And those three words are this: but the Lord. And you're going to find those words back in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 20. And here's what he says. He says, even though I'm frustrated and I think you are moving too slowly, God, you're not working on my calendar, my time schedule. He says, but the Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord is still in charge. He's still good. He's still sovereign. But the Lord, you are still there. You can still be trusted. But the Lord is in his holy temple. And then he says this, let all the earth be silent before him. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Listen, as we wrap today, I talked earlier about the positions, prophet, priest, and king, and how the people of God never really experienced a time when all three of those God-ordained positions kind of came together and led them well. It's because these leaders ultimately failed because they were imperfect people just like me, just like you. But here's what God did. Because he's so crazy about you, God emptied himself into the person of Jesus, who was the perfect prophet. He was the perfect deliverer of the truth of God to us. Jesus was also the perfect priest. He had compassion on everyone he met. He healed the sick. He stepped beyond cultural lines and prejudice. He touched the untouchable. He loved the unlovable and lived a sinless life so that he could go to the cross and take the punishment that we rightfully deserve because of our sin. And Jesus was also the perfect king. He is the perfect king. He brought God's rule in heaven here on earth and showed us how to live the life that God created for us and said, follow me. My question to you today is this: have you put your faith in Jesus? That's where your journey starts. If you put your faith in what you see on this earth right now, or in our nation right now, or even in me, it's only going to disappoint you. You're only going to be more and more frustrated. All cultures, all kingdoms on earth will come to an end. But the kingdom of heaven, it's forever.
Well, right now we are going to take some time to just sit and reflect. We invite you to take those communion elements, whether that's a little bit of bread and juice, just to represent the sacrifice of Jesus, the sacrifice of his body upon the cross. And we invite you to take those elements during this song. And this song is all about surrender, saying, Lord, I give everything. I give my all to you. I'm surrendering all this at your feet today. And maybe today that is everything that is swirling about on social media and politics, maybe in your family or in your relationships, or just in your communities. Maybe there's a lot of things that you're just kind of bearing, that you're just kind of holding on to. So I invite you to take that and to just surrender it, and maybe just be amazed at what God will do and how he will work through those situations. So go ahead and take communion during this time, just to sit and to reflect, and then join us in singing this song.
Humbly I stand in offering, with open hands, Lord, I bring everything and nothing less, my best, my all. You deserve my every breath, my life, I trust you. I'm letting go to give you everything and nothing less. My best, my all. You deserve my every breath, my life, my song. And I surrender all. Oh, and I surrender all. Oh, and I surrender all. Oh, and I surrender all. Everything and nothing less. I give you everything and nothing less. Forever, everything and nothing less. Oh, my life is yours, completely yours. Everything and nothing less. I give you everything and nothing less. Forever, everything and nothing less. Oh, my life is yours, completely yours. And I surrender all. Oh, when I surrender all. Oh, when I surrender all. Oh, when I surrender all. And I surrender all. Oh, when I surrender all.
Hey, thanks, guys, so much for worshiping with us wherever you are. And we love you guys, and I hope your week is awesome. Thanks.